Hey there, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of Storytime with the Scariest Podcast.
Woo!
Two in a row. Haven't done this before, I don't think.
We used to do it a lot in a row. We used to have lots and lots of story times every week. But yeah, we haven't had two story times replace topics. But this is kind of like our Christmas break, I'd say.
I'm Robin Grace. This is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
And we're a podcast that covers scary-ish topics. This week has been crazy. We're moving. Our house is a bit of a mess. And we're just not ready yet to sit down and do a bunch of research for topics. It's a little bit crazy. Adam's desk isn't even set up yet.
Yeah, so we definitely have a fun story there. It's weird that we've had such a crazy time moving around Christmas, and I have a feeling that we won't be doing Christmas time moving again if we can help it. But, that's how leases work. In 12 months, we got to make this decision again. But yeah, if you guys are like, sounds a bit echoey, it's because we're recording in a room that is
half empty.
It is much bigger than our previous office, which is very nice. But because it is like we cleared boxes out because we're having people come by for the holidays. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't be as echoey.
By people, we mean family.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Let me just go through the whole thing. You guys can get our holiday story, and it's kind of a homegrown horror in and of itself. So last week, we were set to move out here to this part of California. And by we, I mean both of us. Robin's moving from her part of California. I'm moving from Las Vegas, where I held most of our stuff. Packing was an absolute nightmare, but everyone always knows that packing's a nightmare. So what it comes down to is I go to pick up the truck to load up, and it's definitely too small. Like, I know it as soon as I see it, I'm like, this is the wrong size truck. I told them the size of house I was going to need, and they gave me the wrong size truck. They don't have another truck for me to upgrade to, so I'm like, shit, this is bad. So I get the truck, I get back to the house, and I hired movers because, I didn't really have anyone to help me move, and I just can't do it all by myself, basically. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to hire movers. I'm a grown-up. I can, drop down a little bit of money for people to just load up my truck, and then I'll drive it out to California. So these guys are really good. They Tetris a bunch of shit in there, and they just come to me and tell me, the thing's almost full. We got to decide what you're not going to bring, basically. Scratch that. They actually told me as soon as they saw the truck, this thing's not going to fit all your rooms. So I was like, okay, everything in the gym, don't take. Don't take any of the exercise equipment, and try and get everything from upstairs. So they did that, and they told me at some point, truck's almost full. So I went upstairs, and I was like, okay, a couple things left. Make sure those make the truck. They come and tell me, truck is full. Go and look. It's packed to the brim. There's not an inch of space except on the top, and, I could toss some dog beds up there, which is what winds up going up there. And, half the office is still back in Vegas. Our credenza, our bookshelf, my desk, originally, as well as some boxes, and it was just kind of upsetting. My computer was in a different room, and I was planning on bringing that in a car. So I was like, okay, cool. There's still some stuff that I can pack up and take out, but in the end, we wound up leaving behind, I'd say 25% of our furniture, maybe a little bit more if you count gym equipment. And then on top of that, I got my computer out here, but none of my cords made it because I had them all in a backpack that somehow did not make any of the cars or the truck that we drove out here. So that sucked. I got our new TV out here, which was nice. We bought it on Black Friday, so it was super cheap for our living room. And there was a bag that had the cords for that and its stand. That did not make it. So I was like, cool, I have no way of putting this fucking TV up. So it was just one thing after another. And then we've slowly been unpacking, but we keep running into this problem of we have boxes filled with stuff that was on our credenzas or our bookshelves, and no bookshelves or credenzas to put them on, so that so much stuff has to stay in boxes. So it has absolutely been the most nightmarish move I've had in a long time. And then on top of that, Robin and I, went back to work almost immediately. So
yeah,
we're Robin's working out of her office, at on site, but I'm working out of this disheveled home. I was working at our breakfast table for a little while, and now I'm in the office at my desk with a bunch of equipment that doesn't work or have power cables. So, yeah, fun stuff. It's been a hellish move for sure. So, and then on top of all that, we're having over family for Christmas. I don't know why. And it's going to be fun. I'm happy we're seeing everyone. But I'm just man, I wish I would have been able to get everything out here so everyone's more comfortable in the space they're going to stay in, because it's definitely not finished, which is not ideal.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. I'm just, incredibly exhausted and now sick as well. So it's been fun. But yeah, we're going to read 3 homegrown horrors today. So the reason we're going with 3 is because one of them is very long. It has 4 subsections to it. So I'm going to read the long one. Robin's going to read the other two. So Robin's going to go first, then I'm going to go second, and I'm going to cut mine in half with a commercial break. And then when I'm done, Robin's going to read her last one, and yeah, that'll be story time.
Yeah.
Sound like a plan?
Yeah.
All right, well, take it away and read this first one.
All right, so this first one is titled Storytime about boarding school. I know we've had a few topics about haunted buildings, haunted schools even, I think, or institutions at least. So I'm curious if this one's about ghosts.
I've been to a boarding school that was supposedly haunted.
Really?
And it was not. It was just abandoned and run down. We didn't think there was anything creepy going on.
Okay. I was like, I don't remember you saying you went to boarding school or anything.
No, like I went to a boarding school that was abandoned.
All right. So it begins. Hi, Adam and Robin.
Hello.
Hello. That's Adam. I'm Robin. I almost said it the other way around. My name's Namo. Before my story time, I just wanted to say that I love you guys and your podcast, and I've been listening for 2 years.
Thank you so much, and thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much. I always look forward to your uploads ever since I first stumbled across your podcast on Spotify. I hope you like my creepy encounter. Sorry, it's kind of long, though.
It's okay.
Being long is not bad. Everyone's always like, sorry, it's so long, but you know.
Every time we get a long one, they're usually strong, and they're down to get the friction on. So I'm totally okay with it.
What the? Did you make that joke last time? I feel like you made a similar joke.
I made that joke outside of the show to you, and then you didn't know what it was from.
As a forward to my story, I just wanted to point out that I'm not a big believer of ghosts and ghouls, even though I come from a very superstitious Thai family. But my encounter definitely instilled a fear of the unknown into me, and I'm always careful not to mess with things that give off bad energy.
Like AC
or
DC.
What? Oh my God, stop! I sent Adam this video today about this guy who like constantly electrocutes himself.
He's so funny though. Like you can tell some of them are deliberate and some of them are like, he knew something would happen, but it was way too much. So he's like, fuck.
All right. Okay, so this happened to me about 3 years ago when I was 15. I used to go to a boarding school in England, and it was pretty old, around 120 or so years. I remember hearing a lot of ghost tales in my younger years. I thought it was all a bit exaggerated and a trick to scare people, which, I mean, admittedly, it is true. People do make up a lot of ghost stories and stuff. When it comes to schools, I think a lot of it's not true, but they're like, you remember, or you know, this one time so-and-so jumped out of a window or something like that, you know?
I'm pretty sure the high school, or I should say the elementary school I went to as a kid, the high school was like further down, and then they started remodeling it, and then they decided to just build a new one. So they abandoned the second floor of the school, and like all these rumors started floating around about like the second floor being haunted. And I'm pretty sure they were spread by the fucking teachers, like, don't go up there because we can't monitor you and we have no one up there. So it wouldn't shock me if that was the case.
That's, abandoning a whole floor, like, just to start
It was old. It was 100-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they had not kept it up very well.
All right, so continuing on. But I guess that all ghost tales exist out of some form of truth. I mean,
Maybe.
I believe that. The main reason why everyone held the idea that the grounds were haunted is because our school was built on top of a witch's site. Not the place where witch trials were held, but apparently where people had practiced black magic a couple 100 years ago.
I would like to pause now to go ahead and say, if you're listening to this and you're like, witches don't practice black magic and you want to give someone an education on it, don't send it to us. We are reading the story. We fucking get it. We've been doing this for 5 years, folks. I've had so many fucking lectures from people letting me know what witches are all about. And I'm like, I know, man. Like, this isn't something I said. I'm just reading the fucking story.
Whenever I hear that, like, oh, someone practiced black magic here, whatever, I'm like...
I also imagine them playing Dungeons and Dragons and them being just like, oh, that evil game.
I've watched one too many documentaries where they're like, he played D&D, and so that's why he killed people. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, dude, no, shut up. Anyway, so I thought it was a lie, but in fact, there seems to be actual evidence that some form of rituals were performed here, like skeletons, which were most likely used as sacrifices. There were stone tablets with symbols, etc. I never got too into the history, though, because it just didn't spark my interest, and my parents both told me not to mess with things like that. In fact, they gave me a little Buddha statue to keep me safe. I wonder, I mean, how do you know that there were skeletons that were found there?
Yeah, I'm curious too.
But think about it, right? England, 120-year-old school. Back in the day, they had places where they just buried bodies. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was a sacrifice.
You never know. And I will also say, if you're looking to protect yourself with like the Buddha image, you can just like make your body into it like I've done.
Oh my God. All right. But that's just some background information. My encounter happened in November time, which meant here in England, the sun was setting pretty early, like 4 to 5 p.m. every day. At the time, I used to do rowing practices on the lake, which was a 15-minute walk from our main school campus. My practices started at 6 p.m. and ended at 8 p.m., which meant that I arrived when it was dark and left when it was absolutely pitch black. Most of the time, the rest of the team left early, and it was only me and a couple of girls who stayed to do a longer cool down. But on this day, I was the only one who stayed late because it was a holiday where you get to go home for a couple days, and a lot of the students had gone home. I had finished my practice and had a shower at the lake house at the side when things started to get weird. As I was drying my hair, I started to feel uncomfortable, like someone was watching me. I mean, someone could have actually been watching you. You're out in the dark by yourself.
That's creepy. Way to make it better.
But I'm just saying.
You know, I always feel like somebody's watching me.
Oh my God. Your brain is just a jukebox.
It's awful. It's so hard to live with it.
I usually am a bit paranoid when alone, so this was normal. But then I started noticing things out of the corner of my eye. These long figures just standing there. But when I blinked, they were gone. I thought listening to some music would be the best thing to get the paranoia out of my mind. So I went to grab my phone from the place I had kept it just before drying my hair, but it was gone. It literally vanished. I started panicking because I knew where I had kept it, and I also knew that nobody else was supposed to be out. At this point, I was getting creeped out, so I decided to just pack my shit and go. I zoomed out of there, quite literally, but realized I now had to trudge through 15 minutes of forest alone. I decided to brave it and just run whilst humming the tune to Friday Night by Katy Perry to get my mind off of my impending doom. By the time I had reached the edge of the forest and I could see my campus, I was out of breath and terrified. Nothing creepy had occurred when I was running, so I was relieved and thought that everything was going to be okay. Boy, was I wrong.
Oh, no.
I started walking to the closest building, which happened to be my dorm block. It was only 50 yards away, so I thought I was clear. But stupid me decided to look back, and I regret doing that so much. In the small clearing stood on the path where I had come out of, I saw this white, waxy face, which seemed to be stretched into this slit-like smile. I don't know how much I believe this, but if I saw that, I would be freaked out.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, that Smile movie, like, I haven't seen it.
You just seen the trailer, and that was enough for you.
Yeah, it makes me just not want to watch it because I'm too scared. The eyes chilled me, even though I was warm from running. They looked into me and almost told me to run. They looked so crazy yet calm, like in the movies where the psychopath is staring down its victim. I wasn't about to have a slumber party with this demonic creature from the forest, so I scanned my card and bolted inside the dorms, slamming the door shut. I hadn't really processed all this, so I decided to just go to bed and stress about it tomorrow. That night, I had the worst sleep paralysis of my life. For a solid 10 minutes, I was just stuck, and I could see that same waxy face and figure in my room. It first emerged from the corner of my desk and then stood next to me. No kidding. I felt the warm breath on my cheek. I had had enough, and I just squeezed my eyes shut and prayed to God that I wasn't about to be killed by something which looked like it had come straight out of some budget horror film. Oh my God, if that were me, I would just, I can't stand, the idea of sleep paralysis and then seeing things. It just freaks me out. I've had horrible nightmares and I hate them so much. You know, the feeling like you can't wake up out of it. Ugh. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep, but when I woke up in the morning, I felt sore all over, like I had slept on nails or something. I went to the bathroom to check, and on my face, where the witch/ghost/demon thing had breathed on me, there was a red patch of skin that looked inflamed. I checked my body, and sure enough, there were red patches all over my body, and they stung every time I touched them. I told the other people in my dorm building, and they looked at me with the same look of horror I had had on my face a few minutes before. My friend took me to the nurse, and she said that she couldn't do anything with the marks apart from some pain relief, but she looked creeped out the entire time. I had also found my phone outside my dorm on the grass, which I know for a fact I did not drop there. Luckily, after that, I didn't seem to encounter anything else for the next few years at school. Partly because I made sure I was with at least 2 other people at all times.
That's a good move.
I mean, that's something that you should do anyway. If you can, like, don't go places alone. Like,
yeah.
Especially at night in the dark. If you're having practice until like 8 p.m., you should not be by yourself.
Something that creepy would make me carry a necklace like Benny from the Mummy movie.
Oh my
where
God.
He has every religious symbol on it just in case. Like, I think that's the best course of action there.
But during my final year, someone in the year below had managed to take a photo of the woods, and in the photo, you could see the same figure of a waxy white face, except that there was about 3 of them in that photo. I recognized that face, and my body just stiffened. It's not like I had that scary of an experience, but something about the way they looked at you made you want to run the other way and just never stop to look back. I'm happy about all the memories I made there, but also I never want to experience something like that again. I hope you liked my spooky encounter, and hopefully the listeners liked it too. Thank you, Namo. Thank you for sharing that.
It was definitely creepy. I got chicken skin a couple of times during it. Yeah, because like the idea of walking through the forest, like I've been in forest before in the middle of the night, and it is creepy as fuck even if you have a partner. So going alone would be very, very scary.
For me, the chicken skin part is like the end where it's like someone took a picture and they're in that picture.
I really, really wish that picture would have been attached to this email. That would have been fucking sweet.
And then it's the pictures that kind of scare me the most, where it's like, there was one going around for a while there a couple years back, and it was like went on it's like a trek, like a run, like those things where people run for a marathon. It was like a marathon.
You can tell how athletic we are by the way we stumble for the word marathon.
A marathon in Hawaii or something, and they had to go through
the
bamboo forest. Thing. And then in the picture, you can see like what looks like a person, but they're like covered in mud and leaves and stuff. And it's so creepy. But the photos are what freak me out. Even if it's like, well-placed Photoshop or something.
Yeah.
It just freaks me out.
I remember that one going around. And if it is Photoshop, they did a pretty good job with it because they freaked out the internet for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a creepy story, though, in general, and I do appreciate you sharing it with us. We're naturally skeptical. I am less skeptical since the start of the show, and Robin is more skeptical. But we do appreciate you sharing that experience with us because that's fucking scary.
Yeah.
And like seeing something like that is terrifying. And it's not that I don't think that you didn't have something like that happen. We just sort of search for the idea of like, what could it have been?
Yeah.
And the more like implausible it becomes, like, I don't fucking know. Like, it's scary. That's what it is. And I hope it doesn't happen to anyone else because that's fucking creepy as shit.
Yep.
So, right on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to our second story of the show, and we're going to have a commercial break in the middle of this one because it does have, I think, 4 stories within it. So, it's going to be a fun time. It's always a good time.
Yeah.
And this one's subject is stories you can read on the pod. And it starts out like this. Hi, Robin, Adam, Spooky Mom, and all the spooky friends.
Those are all of you.
Indeed.
And us.
Hello.
Hello, Clary.
Everyone else has to say hello now. You said you guys are low on stories, so I figured I'd send another email in. Thank you so much, and we are indeed low on stories. So, folks, please email storytime@scarish.com. Go to our website, click on Contact Us, or hit us up on our social medias. We'll give those plugs again at the end of the show. This email goes on to say, I wanted to start off with my sincere apologies for losing Yui. I hope I spelled her name right. You didn't, but that's okay. She was adorable and sounds like she was such a great doggo. It's never easy to lose a pet, but thank you both so much for being so vulnerable and sharing your story about her. That's so hard to lose a pet. My heart goes out to you. Thank you so much. She is now in an urn, and she made the trip. It's kind of funny, when we drove out here, my mom had a pet in her car, bringing them to this new house. Robin had a pet in her car, bringing them to this new house. Then I was in the moving truck, and I was like, oh, I have no pet. And I realized one of the things I didn't pack was Yui's urn and the picture that was made for us of her. And then the two little action figures, not action figures, but the two little figures that were sent to us as well that looked just like her. And I was like, oh, wow, I got to pack those really fast. So I had her in the cab with me because there was no other place for her. So she was literally like in a duffel bag right next to me. I was like, here we go, Yui, going to California. So she was there, and it was kind of nice. All right. It says, I have 4 stories that I think are pretty lengthy. Feel free to break them up as needed or do whatever you see fit.
I just remembered what the box, like the little urn she's in, has like a little
oh my god,
glass.
guys, you have no idea how stupid Robin is sometimes. So yeah, okay, so this urn is like made of like cherry wood, so it's like very red wood, and then at the front it has like a glass panel so that you could put a picture in there of your pet, and behind it has like soft foam so that it'll like press it up against the glass. The soft foam is gray. So Robin thought, because there's no picture in it yet, that the gray behind the glass was a viewport. That the front of it was a viewport, and the gray was Yui, was her ashes. And I'm just like, what fucking urns come with the viewport so you could see your dead pet / relative?
To see out.
I hope not, but we still need to get a picture in there for her. The first 2 are my grandparents' stories. This one is story 1. My maternal grandma had a huge family growing up. She was one of 13 kids in a small mining town. She grew up during pretty hard times and during a lot of mining disputes. Her dad was a miner and would often have to cross the picket lines because, well, he had 13 kids. That made it hard on their family. They'd come home to scab written on their door, sidewalk, front steps, etc., or a shattered window from a rock thrown in. That's scary in and of itself, but there was one night someone broke into their home. Not to break or take anything, but to hide. That's fucking creepy as shit, dude.
Creepy.
Oh, I hate this story already. My grandma's father was a French-Canadian immigrant and didn't have the best English as it was his second language. His name was Joe. My grandma's mother struggled with some health concerns, but from what I understand, she, and her name was June, and Joe were pretty funny together. The woman that broke into their home was a DV victim running from her abusive husband. She was hiding under Joe and June's bed, and June saw her first. The woman was bloody, shocked, and scared. June yelled for Joe to come help, and he just kept saying, "Lady, lady, are you okay? Lady." She never talked, out of shock, they think. He went to dial the police to come, but the phone was placed on a small wooden table with a doily underneath. The phone was a rotary phone, and he couldn't dial it without the doily sliding the phone off the table. My grandma laughs, remembering him yelling, "I'm gonna put a spikes in this thing." Anyway, it made that tense situation something kind of funny that my grandma loves to tell people about. From what I understand, the lady was able to get some help, but they never really knew what happened to her.
That's sad. I would want to follow up and be like, is she okay, or is she still with the scumbag who beat her?
Yeah, it's like, to have someone break into your house and they're hiding in there is terrifying. Then to find them and realize that they're a victim, like, you almost feel like this sense of like, oh no, I feel responsible because my place is where they decided to take shelter. You know what
It's
I mean?
like, imagine a horror movie where someone breaks into your house because they're trying to get away from a killer.
Yeah.
Right? It's same vibes.
It's very creepy for sure. All right, that was story 1. On to story 2. My paternal grandfather made his career in the Navy, so my dad's family moved around a lot when he was a kid. One of the places he got stationed was in the Philippines. My dad was probably about 10 or so, with blonde hair. He said it was really weird because a bunch of Filipino natives had never seen blonde hair, so they would touch his head a lot. It's funny because I used to listen to this podcast with a guy who's a ginger. For those of you who don't know gingers, they're freckles, light skin, red hair, and no souls. And he went to Japan for like 4 or 5 years, and people used to literally stop and take pictures with him because they had seen red hair so rarely. And I think it's how he met his wife, actually. So it's this really crazy story of like how often, like while he was over in Japan, people would just be like, oh, like, can we take a picture with you? And he'd be like, yeah, whatever. And it's just so funny to me that it's like, it makes you like this pseudo celebrity. So that's like kind of the same thing here. Anyway, it's like they always know when we're going to have a tangent. Anyway, they were in military housing and there was a legend of a ghostly woman whose husband was killed in the war. She was said to roam around looking for her husband, trying to reunite with him in death before moving on. My grandfather saw her one night and he told her that her husband wasn't there and she disappeared. A little while later, while my grandfather was working overnight, my grandmother saw her too. She did the same thing and told the apparition that her husband wasn't there and she again disappeared. Now, my grandparents are fairly religious people and typically don't put stock into any ghost stories that I'm aware of. In fact, my grandfather wouldn't allow Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, or any other slightly spooky, ghostly, magic-centered thing to be watched in their house.
What?
That's like...
if my parents were like, you can't watch Lord of the Rings, I'd be like, what?
I'm packing a bag. Finding a new
Fuck
place.
is this? My parents literally took us to watch Harry Potter movies. I remember watching, I think, Prisoner of Azkaban or something with our parents. And, like, we're in the back of the theater, and I just, all of a sudden, like, during the fight, you know, maybe it's not Prisoner of Azkaban, Order of the Phoenix. That's the one. It was Order
I think it was
of the Phoenix.
Goblet of Fire.
No, it was Order of the Phoenix because it's the fight scene where everyone coalesces in at the spirit door.
Right.
And I hear my dad snoring during this battle, and I'm like, God damn it, Dad.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I can't imagine having someone who's like, you can't watch that in my house.
I definitely knew people that were that religious growing up.
Bruh.
Like, my parents were like, hey, you're 7. You're old enough to watch rated R movies, okay? Like, they let us watch cool shit as long as they watched it with us, and if we had questions, we would ask them. But it was mostly like, don't swear. You know, that's all that they tell us. So if you heard a word on there, you know, you're not supposed to say, you're not allowed to say it still. And that's why I have such impeccable taste in movies. Moving on. It says, however, they both have told this story many, many times and never change it. I'm not completely sure, but I am definitely inclined to believe their story. Yeah, if people like have an aversion to ghosts or ghost stories, but they tell a story of an experience they had, it's usually been powerful enough to like break through that barrier that they've put up for themselves. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. Also, people get your stories from your grandparents. Like, they have so many stories. Definitely talk to them. It'll rock your fucking socks off in ways that you probably didn't want to have happen because they have led a full life. And too often people like just decide not to ask like the actual serious adult questions that you could ask of your grandparents, which I think is madness because they're the greatest generation in a lot of cases and they lived through so much crazy shit. So yeah, that's my advice for pre-commercial break. Talk to your grandparents. And we'll be right back. And we are back. All right, and on to story number 3. When I was 12, I went to my girls-only church summer camp that was a couple hours from my hometown. I wasn't friends with any of the girls there, especially those in my age group. They all just fit together, and I was always on the outskirts of everything with them. It was fine. I was pretty good at doing my own thing, and while it hurt that they were close, I tried not to let it bother me. Throughout the week, we did some fun activities like swimming, telling stories, s'mores, you know, the typical summer camp things. I don't remember that much about it, actually, but I really remember 2 distinct events. We went rappelling, so we hiked up this mountain that had a cliff edge on one side. With the help of experienced people, we each put on a harness and rappelled down the cliff face. It was probably my favorite activity, super fun and a little scary. Afterwards, we still had to hike down a pretty steep grade back to the car to get back to camp. On the way, I fell and slid down a switchback, face first, and cut my arm on some rocks. Nothing too terrible, but I have a scar from it, which actually looked like 2 comets shooting away from each other. The scar is so faint now it's hard to see unless I'm super tan, which isn't very often since we now live in Seattle. The second incident was another hike away from camp. Our leaders loaded us in vehicles and drove us, I think, about 5 to 10 miles down the road to this beautiful area that had a 4-mile hike.
That's too long of a hike. You lost me.
That is a long hike. The hike was absolutely gorgeous and included a nice waterfall we got to splash around in and have some fun. I'm just going to pause to mention we hike way more than 4 miles whenever we do Disney, like open to close. That's like 40,000 steps. I don't know what that equates to in miles, but I'm pretty sure it's like 11 or 12 the last time we checked. It's a lot. So you'd be okay with a 4-mile hike if, you know, you were standing in line to get on like Splash Mountain or some shit.
There better be a Splash Mountain at the end of that hike.
Well, there was at this one because they were able to play around in this really nice waterfall. When we got back to the parking lot, I had to go to the bathroom, so I told my leader I was going and was only in the bathroom for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. When I came out, I saw the last car leaving the parking lot without me.
Wait, whoa. Those people did not count?
Seriously. I ran to chase it down, screaming at them to stop, but couldn't even come close to catching it. I started sobbing uncontrollably because I was exhausted from the hike and had no water, no way to tell anyone, nothing. So I just started walking down the road in the direction of camp, still sobbing heavily. I don't know when or really if I would make it back to camp. A car pulled up next to me with 4 or 5 teenagers in it and asked me if I needed any help. Oh my God, this is like the beginning of a horror movie. I'm sure I looked as distraught as I felt. I told them what happened and they offered to drive me back to the camp. I was a kid and felt out of options, so I trusted them. Luckily,
guys, just like
they've been abandoned at this point, so it's hard not to figure like I guess this is my only option. Luckily, they did bring me back to camp, made sure I was okay, and left. I went to find my leader right away, and the scariest part is that no one even knew I was missing. No one knew I wasn't back at camp. I was hurt and scared and just wanted to leave at that point. There was only a day or 2 left, so I stuck it out. I would have been so fucking mad, dude. Oh my God.
I would have been like, Mom, we're fucking suing. You know what happened? They fucking left me.
I had to hitchhike. I fucking hitchhiked back to camp, and they acted like they didn't even know I was gone. I could be dead right now, and no one would be looking for me. Like, I would have been fucking furious.
Absolutely livid.
Gonna keep going here. I was pretty quiet the rest of the time. On the day we went home, my mom had planned to come pick me up about halfway home so that she could take me the rest of the way and catch up with me. Thank everything that she did. I held my shit together until I saw her. Once I was safely with her and on my way home, I lost it completely. I cried to her and told her all that happened, how my arm was scraped up, and how I stupidly hitchhiked back to camp. I don't know that I've ever seen her that mad before. We stopped going to church after that, and I never went to another summer camp. I'm lucky that honest people found me and did actually take me back to camp.
Oh, yeah. Like, she could have been, they could have been murdered. Like, I have no idea, right? Like, it could, well, no, it was an all-girls camp. She did. She almost got murdered. She could have gotten murdered.
Yeah, it's really scary. If that was me, I know how I would feel, and I don't have kids yet, but if that was my kid, I'd have been like, I'm going to drop you off, and I'm going back to that fucking camp. And
burning
I'm going
to the ground.
Fucking Friday the 13th, all of those goddamn counselors right now. All right, we're going to move on to the final story, story 4. This one starts out like this. Something kind of scary, but mostly just ridiculous. I got into a minor accident on my way home from work. I was driving down a 2-lane side road. Not crazy busy, but there were plenty of cars on both sides of the road. I noticed something up ahead on my side of the road on the shoulder, but I wasn't sure what it was. As I got closer, I realized how big it was, as it was taller than my old Chevy Impala. Then it charged my car.
Was it a moose?
That's what I thought too. I had slowed down to give it some room and be cautious of it, and when I saw it charging my car, I was barely crawling along, maybe 5 miles per hour, as close to the middle of the road as I could get. As it was coming straight for me, I realized what it was. An emu.
What the heck? Wait, where in the world is this? What?
I don't know. It slammed into my front passenger fender and rolled over the top of my car, landing behind me and somehow on the other side of the road. I looked back to see if it was okay and noticed it was getting up and ready to charge me again. I didn't want it to get hurt more or cause further damage and possibly injure me, so I sped off before it could hit me again. I have no clue what happened after that, but I called the sheriff's office to report it, and they had me call Fish, Wildlife, and Parks as well, but I never heard anything further. I found feathers of the thing stuck in my side mirror, so I know it wasn't some strange hallucination. Anyway, emus scare the crap out of me now. I told my coworkers the next day, and my boss was telling all of our clients about what happened because it was a pretty comical anecdote. I mean, who gets hit by an emu? In a decent-sized city, no less. It wasn't even out in the boonies or something. After that is when Liberty Mutual
God,
brought on Limu Emu
up.
to their commercials. And I'm pretty sure Farmers Insurance had a commercial about an emu as well. You know, the one with J.K. Simmons where they say, yep, you're covered even if this happens. Probably a coincidence, but awfully suspicious timing. The damage to my car wasn't even something that needed repairs. The windshield had a small chip taken out of it from where its beak hit and a dent in the fender that we were able to pop out ourselves. Otherwise, you couldn't really tell anything happened. I'm pretty sure I found where that emu lives, though, and I don't think it's even legal for them to own it, but I just count myself lucky and definitely watch for the damn thing whenever I'm close by.
Wow.
That is hilarious and horrible. There's so many animals that will charge your car. Like deer, you have to avoid like the plague in the Midwest. Like there's deer crossing signs everywhere. And sometimes even if you stop in time and don't hit a deer and let it cross the road, it'll just stop and just charge your fucking car. It's happened to my brother before. It's happened to a lot of people I know, actually. Anyways, it says, that's all I've got for now. Sorry if things are all over the place. I like my writing style, but understand that it's very on par with me. ADHD, LOL. Hopefully it was easy enough to follow. It was, for sure. Thank you for sending it too. Thank you guys sincerely for hosting this awesome podcast. Someone else, Lewis, I think, just said that Scary-ish is the perfect podcast, and I totally agree. It's very nice. Your banter tangent topics are all around fun, really draws you in and makes us feel better, like we really know you guys. I started playing Animal Crossing New Horizons, better late than never, and every time I do, I think of Robin and can just hear her calling everything adorable. I also randomly hear Adam in my head yelling, January Patreon push, every time January or Patreon is mentioned. Ghostbusters, Mothman, Indiana, Texas, Vegas, Hawaii, Pets, Disney. So much just reminds both my husband, Jaron, and I of you both, and we sincerely would love to meet you in person if we ever get a chance. Hopefully we'll have some in-person things in the future, and we'll definitely keep you guys posted if those are a thing and how you can attend. And it goes on to finish, oh, and Zaboomafoo is a damn lie.
Wow.
Sincerely, Amanda. And in parentheses it says, and Jaron says hi. By the way, I'm Let's Go to Disney on Twitch and Discord. I don't post much or log in often for the live streams, but anyway, that's me.
Well, we'll keep an eye out for you next time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That was really good. Thank you for sending all the stories. It's really awesome to see how people rallied to our call of we're running out of stories and sent us a bunch. So this was awesome to go through. The idea of getting charged by a fucking emu. There's a couple of them in there that are just scary or infuriating, like just getting left at the fucking hike spot. Like that is going to stick with me for a while. But to wrap it up on the emu story is just sort of perfect. So really good stuff. Thank you so much for sending that in.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So for the final email this episode, this one is from Nevia. I hope I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I'm so sorry. It begins, hi, Adam and Robin. Hello, that's us.
Hello.
I started listening to you guys on Spotify, and one episode in, I knew I loved the Scary-ish podcast.
Shout out to Spotify. And thank you so much.
Y'all get me through my long overnight shifts. I've always taken an interest in the paranormal, but I refuse to listen or to watch any scary movies at home because I get so paranoid. Anyway, my name is Nevia.
You said that right.
Yeah,
good job.
Nice. And I also live in Vegas. What? Well, we don't live in Vegas anymore, but that's unfortunate. I was so excited when I found out that you guys do too. I'm so sorry we moved. I have a homegrown horror that is okay to be shared on the podcast. Thank you. I'll be emailing more experiences I've had soon. This one is titled The Mother That Isn't Mine.
That's creepy.
When I was about 5 or 6, my mom lived in a townhouse. I did not live with my mom, but would go and stay with her often. I had my own room there, although I loved my Dora-themed room. Something was off about not only my room, but the house itself. It had a cold feel to it, as if something was missing. I'd spend the day playing with my toys, using my imagination, or playing outside. After dinner, bedtime would roll around and I would get into bed. I'd turn on my TV and usually watch a cartoon until I fell asleep. Until I started to dread falling asleep. Every night as I drifted off, I would feel a presence enter my room and stand on the side of my bed.
Fuck that.
Fuck that.
All up and down. Dude.
Why is this the last story? It's scary.
Leave the TV on.
I clenched my eyes shut as this entity would begin to pull back my sheet and pick me up,
Fuck this.
coddling my still body and rocking me back and forth like a baby. Then gently tucking me back into bed. I did not feel afraid, but only uneasy because I knew it wasn't my mom. I don't believe it was sleep paralysis because I could still move if I wanted to. I just chose not to. If it was a demon, I did not want to see.
That's fucking
I
terrifying.
mean, like, dude, I wouldn't want to fucking see either. Like, bruh, no. That's the end.
It could be a dream because you were very young, but at the same time, it seems like it was an actual experience. I thought in my head too, like, maybe it was your mom the whole time just coming in. They thought you were asleep. The rocking thing is a little weird. Who wants to wake up their kid?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just in general
Just
very,
no.
very terrifying.
Why is that the last? I wanted to end it on the emu. What is this?
That's so funny. Yeah, thank you so much for sending that in. We definitely want to hear more of your stories.
I'm so sorry we moved.
We're sorry we moved away from Vegas. We're going to be back there often. Spooky Mom still lives there for now. So either way, though, that was really good. And you definitely creeped out Robin.
Yeah.
So good stuff. And thank you for sending that. And yeah, I think that's everything we're going to have for this particular episode of Storytime. If you have a story you'd like to share, it could be paranormal, supernatural, spiritual, coincidental, true crime, or extraterrestrial in nature, feel free to reach out to us by emailing storytime@scarish.com or go to our website, scarish.com, click on Contact Us, fill out that form. It comes directly to us, or hit us up on our social medias. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Twitter is @scarishpod, and Instagram is @scarishpodcast. We would love to hear from you. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. Those are our monthly donations. Tiers start at $1. At $1, you get ad-free episodes, so that's kind of cool. You can also go to ko-fi.com/scarishpodcast, and those are one-time donations. It's been a crazy month with moving, so I'm a little behind on packaging this end-of-year reward for all of our Badge of Honor patrons and above, but I will get there.
Yeah, don't worry, y'all. We have them, and they're going to be sent out
I also have to find them. They're somewhere in this pile of crap.
ASAP. There's so many boxes that are unpacked. I would say we're at like 60% unpacked at this point, but there's still just so much to go.
Yep.
So, but anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Storytime. We know this wasn't a topic episode, but I think we can all agree these are some pretty good fucking stories, and I'm glad we finally got to read them. So thank you to everyone who sent those in. Thank you to everyone who listened, and that's everything we have. So Robin, why don't you go ahead and sign us out?
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye-bye.